So for those of you who weren't here earlier to hear my presentation, I'm here to introduce Tomi Ahonen to those of you. And I just want a little piece. Tomi basically changed the entire course of my career in December of 2013 when he shared up on the wall like this at the Mobile Ministry Forum and talked about how mobile phones were coming like a tsunami, and this seventh wave of mass communication was going to wash over us. And from that point on, I've been preaching mobile and telling everybody that they need to get ready for this wave, telling churches, telling denominations. So it's my pleasure to have introduced Tomi today. It's great to have you here in person.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So we have questions. I bombarded you with a lot of statistics and case examples and some provocative ideas earlier, and I've been sharing stuff previously with you, and now I've been at awe listening to what all you, if I've been talking the talk, you guys have been walking the walk and really doing the stuff the right way, that exactly what I could write a whole book on, just that this is the right way to do mobile from one industry point of view in looking at religious uses and so forth. So, questions, please. I'm here to help you. Yes, first, go ahead. Do we have a microphone?
Well, okay. So, I served in West Africa, and one of the biggest reasons why smartphones were slow to adoption there was because of the 24-hour battery, whereas the Nokia phones and all the dumb phones, and I've seen people prefer the dumb phone over the smartphone for that reason. And as you were presenting the Nokia new model, I looked it up, and they claim it has a month battery life. So I just, because I'm thinking, wow, finally the barrier's been broken, and I'd like to hear your comments on that.
Very good. I like to say that the modern human needs are connectivity and electricity. For all of you at Mobile Ministry work, wherever you can take advantage of this. Wherever you go, make sure that all of your people have the portable battery rechargers with them. Whenever they sit with any one of your flocks, say, oh, by the way, would you want to have your phone recharged while you're here, etc. And so battery is not growing as fast as the computing power. Now, on one side, as we have this crazy race of trying to make ever larger screens, the phablet-size, very large smartphones, and very high precision screens with very high density, pixel density, and very high quality video images, that all eats battery life. So that the CPU and the processors work even more, and the electricity to keep the display on makes it very difficult to keep the battery, the phone, to last one day. That's before we count for heavy usage, when suddenly they're watching all of our cool videos and all of our cool music and do all of the content that we prepared for them, and suddenly it doesn't even last a day. Unfortunately, there's a fashion obsession of skinniness in mobile phones, like supermodels that are too skinny. It's just that this crazy obsession with as if the smartphone was not thin enough for our pocket, that it just every time it needs to be 1/fraction of a millimeter thinner and thinner, and my phone is the thinnest, and look how fat the old phone was from 2 years ago, and I need to get the skinnier phone. Which also means that the battery has a hard time keeping up with growing into the next generation of the phones. Now, in the Western world, we don't have, in the rich world, we don't have a big problem with reliable electricity and omnipresent electricity in every household, in every home, in every office. All of those of you who work in the emerging world know that's completely not true. That there is very much the issue of even the electrical grid might not remain on for 24 hours. The electrical grid is not reliable, that even if it was supposed to be, it may have unannounced cuts that can be dramatically long. And then there are large parts of the countries, many countries, where there is no electricity provided from the grid, and then people use all kind of other things, anything from bicycle pedaled rechargers to solar power to generators and so forth. Now, on the phones, the phone makers on the high-end phones have a certain kind of Apple envy, iPhone envy kind of a vision. To some degree also a Samsung Galaxy envy, but very much an iPhone envy. We want, whatever Apple does, they cannot do anything wrong. Let's make a phone exactly like the iPhone. And Apple has never been famous for long battery life. The one opposite player who was famous for very long battery life died, Nokia. so they used to have some extra versions that had extra thick batteries, and used to be that we could always replace the batteries that they had, that you could carry extra batteries with you, and so forth. On the low end, I'm hoping that this new revitalized Nokia will come back, prolonging battery life for low-end smartphones, and separately that perhaps there's a pendulum swing, that at one point it went a little bit too far, where a generic average mid-price smartphone can barely survive a day, and we could come back towards phones that might be, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters thicker, but then have a battery life that can last 2-3 days. And that could go a long way. Then we have the issue of carry a separate battery recharger, inconvenience, USB plug, etc., or have two phones and these kind of workarounds. It's unfortunate that almost all of the phones with a reputation for long battery life are feature phones. But there are plenty of them which are at the very low end, which then have long battery life, but then it's a completely stupid artificial choice where either you can have a very advanced phone or you can have long battery life, but why couldn't you have both? So I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that we will get some solution to this, but at the moment there is a fashion obsession with ultra-thin phones, which is holding that part back. The 3310 has a promised battery life in passive mode of just connected to the network but no telephone calls for 1 month, or like 27 days or something like that, and that if you make just phone calls and text messages, last a week. Then if you're using the camera and watching videos and heavy use, then it will be less. But anyway, that in that sense, at least it's a nice step in that wait, there's a market for people who appreciate electricity. Funny little side story. In Pakistan and India, warring countries fought several times with each other. There's a border area on the India side where they don't have electricity on the village on the India side. The people put their mobile phones on a bus in the morning to the Pakistan side where their friends in Pakistan charge the phones, send it back on the evening bus for them to get it. So it's just like one of these, human nature, our countries fought wars, but we're actually friends here close by, and they need electricity, we have electricity, let's charge the phone for them. So I mean, that there are all stories like this. Yes, question. Yes, there's in the back.
How do you see mobile phones helping the world, helping the people of the world in the future?
Oh my God. From the point of view, first if we start from the World Bank. The World Bank says that the single biggest gain that an economy can have is investment in mobile. And the only investment the World Bank has done that has never had a failed investment was an investment in mobile. So that education is the second best thing you can do, and then come the airports and roads and other things like that. But the single best thing you could do on an economic level for a country wanting to advance itself currently is to invest in mobile. When I think personally, I think that the immediate need in helping people to communicate, we had that on the panel discussion, and we had that discussion before, then the connection need is incredibly powerful. That helps especially small workers, small businesses, a farmer, a fisherman, a small contractor, a plumber, people like this. If we give them connectivity, they suddenly have a much larger opportunity to sell their own services, or the fisherman to get better options for his catch, or the farmer to find out when should I be putting my fertilizers in, and when should I collect my crop, and is there a storm coming that will damage things, and so forth. So it is extremely powerful at the moment, especially for those people who had never had any kind of connectivity. They never had a telephone, they don't have a TV at home, they don't have any kind of course, no internet and so forth. if for any of us who lived with a telephone and television and radio and we saw the internet coming and give us now a mobile phone, our life is marginally better, although that margin can be big, but our life is marginally better. For someone who never had any connectivity, and we give him his first device, is actually the most connected, most powerful device that there's been, mobile, the benefit can be astronomical, but it takes a while for that to grow. All that said, the much bigger change comes in the next 10 years when mobile money takes over from cash. So all that we have experienced so far pales in the change when money migrates to mobile. And that is because it is not that I am able to pay you, it is that you are able to receive my money immediately, which means that the velocity of money, the currency circulates faster. I get paid faster. Every person gets instantly a cash machine with a digital receipt in their pocket without buying a cash machine into their store. So that I believe that we're getting a turbocharged change, a supercharged change coming in the next 10 years. And we're seeing prototypes of that, Kenya being the best example, where we can see how much that can change all of society. Small question, small answer. Next question. Yes. Who has the microphone?
I have the microphone.
Good.
I'm
Yes.
not sure if this
There's-
question goes
yes.
into your area, but I would be wondering what's your view on QR codes, development alternatives?
Oh, alternatives to QR codes. Oh, wonderful. So I love QR codes. I saw the prototype QR codes. NTT Docomo showed it to me before they launched them in Japan. And I absolutely fell in love with them, thinking the idea that, oh my God, all I need to do is take a picture of this square. I don't need to do any typing. At that time, we didn't have even touchscreen phones, so they were all T9 multi-type to try to type a long web URL. And it was like, oh, this is magic. So I love anything that's magical, and QR codes to me were magical. I've seen evolution of how they're trying to embed more information into QR codes, or to take the kind of intellect similar to QR codes of recognizing images, let's say newspaper images, magazine pages, things like that, and collect the equivalent information from that. Beyond that, I don't see an evolution to that, but I see a replacement. That at least part of the business will be replaced, I think, with NFC. That near-field communication, NFC communication, I think will eventually cap the opportunity of how far we can grow with QR codes, and then will eventually supersede it. Probably QR codes will not completely disappear, but they will start to, that we're close to peak QR code now. There's still growth, there's still good opportunity, but I wouldn't see it anymore as the dramatic big growth opportunity. Augmented reality gives an opportunity to evolve kind of beyond that. So it's one place that might be interesting. Did you have a thought in that area? Because it was kind of a provocative question. So do you have a vision that is there some part that you would want? Oh, very good. Yes. Yeah. I would currently say, all of you, make sure you have a QR code on your business card. All of you have a QR code on every one of your brochures. Absolutely. Currently, if it's 20% or 40% of your total national use of QR codes, totally you don't want to abandon this. This is like forgetting to put your www URL onto your business card. So absolutely, currently we should do, but expect it is probably peaking. That we will not hit, QR code usage will probably not hit anywhere near 80-90% of all mobile phones. But there's still a little bit growth left, but we're close to a peak. Yes. Next question. I think we had a question here in the front, but yes, we have. So if someone can also bring the microphone here. Yes, go ahead.
Your thoughts on 5G and any future developments for lower power, lower cost, and higher performance, and also any particular products that you've seen at any of the CES shows in, Hong Kong or wherever, that particularly intrigued you that you think could possibly fit in this setting?
Wonderful question, and it is I'm almost too old to be able to answer that. I was out there when I started my consultancy when 3G started, literally on the same day. And then I wrote, in my second book, I wrote the first description of what services for 4G might be like. So I played around with 2G, with 3G, and just about the start of 4G. 5G is going just that far that my brain's not big enough to handle all of that. 5G is supposed to be shown at the Tokyo Olympics. There are several carriers and technology players who want to get just ahead of that. Exactly the same type of evolution in the speed of the network and efficiency of the network that we saw from 2G to 3G and from 3G to 4G, we will also see from 4G to 5G. We will get higher speeds so that we can look at high quality videos on our mobile phones and have these at reasonable price costs on our cellular networks. 5G will not cover absolutely everything what 4G covered, just like 4G doesn't cover absolutely everything that 3G did. And so there will be issues that how efficient is it, at what points. It will take 5 years for the early countries to deploy fully their networks, and 10 years until 5G will be available everywhere. It's not going to be a relevant issue for us for the next few years. But it is coming. And it will not be the end. Because unfortunately, the moment we give that much capacity to all the clever engineers and say, this should be forever enough, then they will come up with something really silly that will fill it up like Pokemon Go, and all at once, the next crazy thing, Angry Birds and so forth. The next crazy thing comes along and suddenly, we need 6G and we need next 7G. But in Finland, there was a company that said, 1, 3, 2, 3G, 3G, 4G, we're way ahead of you guys. In Finland, we've got 12.5G. This is Sonera in Finland back in the day when we were the early G races, when the first company started to talk about 4Gs. They said, we have 1G, we have 2G, we have 2.5G, we have 3G, and we have 4G. Add all of them together, we have 12.5G. Well, there will always be an increased need, just like Bill Gates once said that 640K should be enough for any PC. No. There will always be some clever engineer who will fill that network, and someday there will be a 7G phone too. Yes?
I'm really excited about seeing some design around people which we care about generally here,
Yeah.
who have lower end mobile.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And even if Nokia doesn't take off, probably something else will, because that's really exciting. Now, the screen seems to be smaller. Is that right? And so would that mean that we will have to think about user interface, changing it, making it smaller and working with smaller, so it's not quite smartphone, it's half smartphone? And also, are there other limitations already built in for user interface, playing video, audio, other things, not so much CPU capacity and such things? Could you tell something about this?
Very good. So this is specifically about the Nokia 3310. Yes. So this is a phone that's not touchscreen. So that's immediately reducing some of the complexity of the phone. The screen is modest size. It's much bigger than previous feature phones, but it's not 3.5, 4-inch size, typical small screen smartphone of today. Part of the thinking on it is to minimize the costs. That's why there's no 3G, keeping it at 2G, keeping these kind of things as much as possible at a minimal level, but still provide a few things that consumers specifically in the emerging world will appreciate. FM radio, which is completely irrelevant to mobile phone users in America. I mean, who puts FM radio on a mobile phone? I wouldn't listen to FM radio. But in very many villages in Africa, the FM radio that was on the first Nokia phone that father bought is the first radio the family ever had. And the whole family listened to that radio. So it's just like, it's one of those things that in part of the world, in Finland, in Sweden, now, I mean, who cares that the phone has an FM radio? But in Indonesia, in China, in India, in Sri Lanka, it absolutely matters. Dual SIM. So 2 SIM cards. So again, those of you who work in dual SIM markets, it's obvious to you. For the rest of you, yes, there are mobile phones where you can put 2 SIM cards and you can then switch on the phone which network you are on. If you are on Verizon or you are on Sprint, and just that both cards are in the phone, and you decide whose network you are currently using. So depending on how this is done, they can call you on either network and the phone recognizes and answers that. Again, these are the kind of things that are not of high priority in some of the richest markets, but are very, very big, decisive things in markets that do not add dramatically to the cost. But if we put a very expensive CPU, a large screen, etc., and a high-power camera, those would add a lot to the cost of making the phone. Now, I'm sure the 3310 is an experiment by that company, HMD, that manages the Nokia brand. It depends how well it sells. If it sells well, they will play on that theme and try other phones in that way. But I've got plenty of colleagues who said that's going to die, that it's a bad phone, it's a bad idea, it's not going to succeed. The one thought I would say, if you are curious about does it have a chance, read what the reviews of the 3310 were in emerging world markets. What did the newspapers say in India about it? What did the newspapers in Nigeria say about it? Or in Brazil? Glowing reviews. When can we have it? I can't wait to have this. I want this now. This is the perfect phone for it. That is the attitude in the emerging world. Whereas if you read, the British newspapers go, oh, well, retro phone, it would be otherwise nice, but unfortunately it doesn't have 3G, and a little crummy complaints about this, that, and the other. Anyway, so yes, okay. There are, for example, there was some confusion. I actually shouldn't look it up because I haven't. There was some confusion on what exact software comes preloaded. So that there definitely are some issues where they seem to have made compromises to keep it also on the software side, to keep it very limited. And this partly will be, I believe, the primary issue is, one, capture every existing I love Nokia deeply customer and give them another Nokia phone. And secondly, prepare those who were reluctant to move to touchscreen smartphones, get them addicted to the camera and the larger screen for the next phone 2-3 years from now to be a Nokia Android basic smartphone to replace this one. Yes?
Do you see any particular company or anything emerging that is going to spike internet usage in the emerging world?
Company?
Yeah, like Facebook.
Yeah,
I've heard that
yeah.
they really want
Yeah.
get Facebook to fill the world. But
I think that Facebook has been the wonder drug of the internet growth just everywhere, in every market, in every way. And it will continue to be so. Facebook's vision is they want to be the only internet that we never need to leave, go outside Facebook, and we can just stay inside Facebook and do all our banking and do all our news and do all our friends and do all our messaging and all our video sharing, all of that, do it in. You don't need Google, you don't need YouTube, you don't do it everything inside Facebook. That is their vision. And for some people, it is synonymous to the internet. That for some people, that they're just thinking that's the only thing I need, and whenever, that's all I really need from the mobile phone or a PC. And so I think they've been very good at that and driving it that way. For anyone else in that space, I don't see an Amazon or a Twitter or even a YouTube to have that kind of power to do that. But I do think that we are moving from voice to messaging to pictures to videos to beyond. And on that path, Facebook has only really captured the messaging, the voice, and the picture sharing part. And now the battle is, can they also kind of supplant YouTube on the video side? That seems to be their big passion. Obviously, they also want to become our wallet. I think that they have a long way to go. That they might succeed there too, but there I think they have a long way to go. So how do you want to? Yes. Okay. Yes.
Thank Thank you. We've been making apps for Android and for iOS, and sometimes people come to say, well, what about Windows? Are you going to make an app for Windows? Where do you see Windows Mobile going?
Very,
and
very-
are there other places where it is being used?
Very, very good. Very, very good. So I was one of those people. The moment that Nokia announced that they're going to go to the Windows ecosystem and abandon the Symbian system, I told them that will kill Nokia, and I have been a total pessimist on the Windows adventure. I said back when Microsoft bought the Nokia business, at that point I said that they will run maybe about 3 or 4 years, and that then they will wind down the mobile side of Windows and concentrate on the PC side. That has been my vision. So I understand how brainwashed and how you know, I mean, that I have an extreme view on this. But the reality in terms of what they're doing in the market, they don't have any handset makers left who has, in a 10% scale, who would be making Windows phones. So the only thing they can do is they have the desktop PC and tablet side. And plus then their own Surface, what they want to do with Surface. With that, I believe Microsoft has a good opportunity on the desktop long into the future, but it looks like they're winding down and shutting and eventually closing down their mobile experiment. It is extremely inefficient coding to try to make a converged central code to run on both. We can see from Apple that Apple has a separate Mac OS and a separate iPhone OS and is much better at both of those than trying to do a converged system in the middle. I do believe it makes sense for Microsoft to have Windows be the competitor to the Mac and declare, not declare, but just de facto leave the Windows world out. In practical numbers, when you look at the last year, Windows was dropping to about 1.5% market share. There's absolutely no volume there for you, so it's not worth putting app development there. If they manage to get that rising, then you could. But I think the very big issue that anyone developing apps, anyone in Android or iPhone developing apps should be thinking automatically and instinctively is HTML. Anyone who does Android or iPhone, please, your HTML variant of your app can do at least 90% of what your Android or iPhone version can do in almost any case. But to develop it costs from 10% to 20% the cost of your original app. Do the HTML version. Why? Because it reaches from 50% to 100% larger audience. So you'll almost double your footprint for a lousy 10%, 20% development cost. So definitely do the HTML version. Then depending on where your footprint is, you might even consider still doing a WAP version. If you're in India, if you're in Nigeria, you need a WAP version. Even Indonesia is still WAP. So that then depends on footprint. Europe, of course, America, then WAP is only used for payments. But I mean, you're not going to, nobody browses on WAP anymore. Yes. Okay. And then Java has some opportunity to look into, but Java is also declining. Yes.
Hi. What are your thoughts about ad hoc networks, particularly in emerging world?
It's a lovely, I'm not much of an expert. The pirate in me loves the idea that they should be everywhere, and it's like the ultimate internet philosophy of we really want to make all of this free. It makes sense from utilizing resources as efficiently as possible. I think commercially, practically, and with all kind of the power of incumbents and then the devices that would be populating that world, it's going to be a struggle. It's not impossible, but it's going to be a struggle whoever wants to play in that direction. I would not expect short-term major successes. There might be an individual country, for example, where suddenly there's a retailer, petrol station decides to build this along their service portfolio and somehow makes it happen, or a hotel chain or something like that. But in general, I don't think that the near term is very promising for it. But I would love to see it succeed. Yes.
I really appreciate you separate out between the developed and emerging world. I mean, how can we keep up with the statistics so we can continue to be on top of the strategy?
First of all, obviously, all of you need to download the map we had, the atlas the 40 countries that, and please contribute and help build it, that all the information, I need to get that immediately myself. So this is just a wonderful initiative in that sense. In your home countries, and with any organizations you work with, push them to give this for you. So, for example, that in Indonesia, the Mobile Mondays, the Mobile Marketing Association, all of these, the GSM Association, all of these that are active there, then tell them, we don't just want the general global numbers, please separate these out for us. One of the analyst houses started doing this. I don't remember which one it is. Might be IDC. One of the big analyst houses just started doing this last year, that they started releasing a separate number for the rich world and the emerging world. And this is obviously something that we need as an industry. We need to have that separation. You can ask for it locally and you can push the industry locally. Then when you find stuff, share. We're all in the same boat in that sense, you know, us in this room. When someone finds that, oh, cool, here's information from Argentina, it will be very similar in Chile. It will probably be very similar in Brazil. It may be quite similar also in Indonesia and in Malaysia. So that in that sense, let's share, and in that way try to promote, because it's very easy to find 15 different studies of what young people are doing in Britain, or what you know, millennials are doing in America. You know, there are tons and tons and tons of studies of that behavior. But yes, try to find some from Nepal, or try to find something from Bulgaria, or from Ecuador. Then yes, good luck. And if you find any, let me know. I will put it to my Twitter feed immediately to everyone. So also that. Honestly, sharing, obviously, everyone in this room, we're mobilistas, we're mobily passionate and sharing people. Make sure you share everyone's business cards, and make sure that you always, when you find good stuff that you know your friends can help, share it. Yes? I'm sorry.
What trends do you see on governments interfering deliberately with mobile communications? For example, in India, in Jammu and Kashmir, no SIM card from outside of that state, even those that are the same company in India, will work in it, and nobody's SIM card in that state works anywhere outside of it. And then in South Sudan, in parts of South Sudan where mobile companies were growing, suddenly when the civil war broke out, whole areas are blacked out by the government. They've just shut it all down. Do you think that's going to get worse, or will that ease up? That sort of thing.
Very good. I'm an optimist. I hope long run things get better. First of all, mobile is a rich, lucrative target. So governments they're very tempted to come and tax. Slap on new taxes on handsets coming in, slap on new taxes on the telcos, the operators, anyone else operating in that market, in terms of just that. This will augment our revenues, add to our revenues, so let's put an extra tax on this, leading to some really dramatic changes between neighboring countries on costs, on what the consumer pays, etc. Secondly, there's obviously the very great danger to the government of empowering the citizenry. And so then that is then coming in many cases where the governments will shut down immediately. If there's a threat of revolution, people are going on the streets or something, then let's immediately shut down Facebook, let's immediately shut down Twitter, let's take SMS off that it can't connect, etc. And then there is the spying aspect of where the government then wants to pay attention of who are threats to me internally, and let's try to monitor that. Every citizen walks around with this device. We know where he is. We can listen into his phone calls and find out, is he a good guy or bad guy, and there could be all kind of horrible permutations of this. And at least some cases where there have been things that government ordered assassination because they were able to identify that enemy combatant via their mobile phone and then target it and so forth. So every technology is neutral. There's positive and negative. Me personally, I'm always the optimist, thinking long run it will get better. So that people will learn, the industries will grow, the people will learn to use these technologies, and even though there will be side effects, it will grow better. In some way, there's also an element of shaming, where some governments have tried to take a very hostile stance to the industry, or things like censorship and so forth, and then neighboring countries and the various industry players and mass media have then tried to shame them into reducing that or stopping that. On that, it seems like the direction is a little bit currently in the wrong direction, that several governments have recently been emboldened to stifle the free communication more.
Okay, we are at the time. What we're going to do is, because we got another 30 minutes till dinner, is we're going to take 5 more. I've seen 5 hands. Okay, now there's like way more than 5 hands. So we have one that we're going to read from online, somebody who's watching the live. We're going to read that question for you. And then there was 1, 2, 3, and there was a 4th one back here. Now, I know there's more. I know everybody's got a question. Tommy's here all day tomorrow. There is dinner. We have all evening. So keep in mind that if we can't get to you here, you can follow up with him. He wants you to talk. So we're going to take these that I see came up first and go from there. So, yeah.
All right, this is from Frank in Africa, wondering if mobile developers are looking at the compatibility of hardware and software, particularly mobile operating systems, vis-a-vis the differences in technologies in different continents and the ability to use the technology. Is that clear enough?
Oh, okay. I think that for a very large part, the developers will tend to look at their home market. They tend to know, the American developer knows the American market, the Swedish developer looks at the Swedish market, the Indian developer looks at the Indian market. In that way, they will also be kind of prisoners of what their domestic market looks like, and they will understand the domestic market pretty well. Problem then comes when they try to go abroad. If it's neighboring countries, they're usually similar, but then when we're going to another continent, we will then all at once find that there may be a very big difference. Australia, for example, is a very high iPhone penetration. So, and just that it's not something that would obviously hit you when you are looking at comparing to let's say, Europe and so forth. And when it comes to the developers' understanding in the hardware and the software side, then we're coming to the issue where the hardware is becoming harmonized. It's really becoming standardized. Almost all, it's the same CPUs, the same memories, the same specs, and these kind of things, that it really, the differentiation is what is the operating system and or the application layer immediately above that, the security layer, the identity layer, and so forth. And at these then become very big issues. I would say a significant issue if that is on the concern, is then to think about local legislation. This can become much more than an issue of what is free competition, what is the issue of morality, what is the issue of legal age to sign contracts on what kind of things kids can do, what can you market to kids, these kind of issues, those are dramatic differences, often with even quite close by neighboring countries. That then, if that's on his mind, was it Frank? Then yes, then Frank should also remember that we have the legal environment, which can actually be a much bigger headache. Just keep that in mind.
All right, Rick's up next.
Thank you. Struck by your comment on how much people use Facebook, and you have the example of a very nice scripture mobile app in Arabic, and it has a corresponding Facebook page that's intended to promote it, and also allows people to make comments and things, which is very good for feedback, and they can feel involved. But it has some little promotional bits, and there's different ways to advertise a Facebook page or promote it or boost a post. Do you have any recommendations on how best to use Facebook to get listeners and expand your audience for your mobile apps?
Thank you. This was an easy answer. This is not my core competence. I wrote a book on social media And in the book, it came out before Facebook, so Facebook is not mentioned in the book once. That was the time of MySpace. So yes. But I do have actually an honest, real answer for you. One of the areas often forgotten is we can use SMS text messaging. It's an easy way. Provide a link to your page. All of the people that you can send a text message to will be able to receive it and get the link. And then they can tell their friends, this is a good place, share the link and get the friends to sign up to your Facebook. So this is something that Peggy Ann Saltz, one of the authors of the biggest apps books, then she writes in her app book that any app developer, don't forget SMS as a way to drive traffic to your app or to your website, because you can embed the web link into your text message. And this way you can reach people who otherwise would not be, because otherwise you're only advertising to the people who are near that service anyway. But this gets you a nice reach beyond. So that's my only little bit, but sorry, it's back to my standard refrain, SMS, SMS, SMS. Yes?
Thank you. I was impressed by the, when you spoke in your last presentation about SMS and the reach that it has.
Yeah.
And you gave some really great scenarios, examples of use cases for SMS to just reach so broadly, but you only touched briefly on USSD. And I'm wondering if you can just give a few examples of, do you think that's something that will continue to grow or just kind of stable? It seems like it's not very developed on the side of users or even organizations, how they might be able to utilize it. So can you just help us think about what that might look like?
Wonderful. So USSD, unstructured data. It's the one where you press hashtag 44*21 to check how much is your balance. That is USSD. Those of you who work in Europe, America, Canada, Japan, close your ears. This is not going to be matter to you. But for anyone else who's looking at the rest of the world, emerging world, and Eastern Europe, and so forth, then USSD is a very viable, practical technology that exists on every network in the world. For the most part, where people use it, they use it for top-ups of prepaid accounts. So almost all mobile phone users know how to use USSD. The problem with USSD is there is a very limited number of total possible code permutations, and these have to be approved by the carrier, the operator. So it's cumbersome to get the USSD system up and running, and it will usually involve that you will have to talk directly to the carrier or have a middleman who handles that discussion on your behalf if it is a little bit more advanced market where USSD is currently deployed. But in places like South Africa, mobile banking, mobile payments, USSD, gaming, USSD, news, USSD, music downloads, USSD. You can do tons of things. In Kenya, Wikipedia, loaded on via USSD, etc. So it is a very powerful technology, but it is extremely extremely simple. And there is a limit to the total number of potential addresses, the number codes that could be used. So if you are working in emerging world, look into it. If you currently are using, for example, SMS, interactive SMSs and text messages to reach out to your different contacts, USSD could be a way to enhance that and to add to that. The beauty with USSD is it doesn't cost the consumer anything. And we can have the interactivity and launch that interactive session with that consumer, whereas if the consumer is asked to send a text message to you, then the consumer will be charged 10 cents or whatever, 1 cent or whatever is the local cost of SMS, or it is charged away from their allowance of 500 free text messages or whatever their price package happens to be. So now, where is it going next? India is deploying USSD mobile banking as one of their mobile banking solutions. If India is doing even partly mobile banking on USSD, I think we can be pretty sure it's not slowing down. Russia is deploying USSD as one of their major mobile banking solutions. I think it's another pretty good guess that there's plenty of growth left in it. In very many areas in the emerging world, it was a forgotten child that has recently gotten attention. I think that there's nice growth in it, but it will be spotty. So that we might see that Colombia does it, but Venezuela does not. or that we see that Ghana does it, but then Togo does not, or whatever, that, that it might be very spotty in where it happens, depends a lot on the local operators in telcos. Yes?
Okay, thank you. I'm Otis from East Indonesia. So as we know that in East Indonesia, we don't have a good internet connection. So before I'm doing desktop software using Visual Basic, and we're using Nokia classic style. So we're using Eticommand. Well, it's helpful for us so that people can get the auto-respond message, text message. But the problem now is we can use by another mobile phone like Samsung and other, because Eticommand just available in Nokia phone. It's helpful for us. So now our problem is we can get the many pulsa because it's in pulsa. So maybe you have another solution for us to do that using internet connection, because now government already provide the better connection. So maybe working on the website or how to connect with Eticommand, that's my question. Thank you.
I think that on that you have, time will automatically solve this problem. Time will automatically solve this problem simply because very soon every phone in Indonesia will have a web browser. Today it's probably about 60–70%, but soon every phone will have, and a few years after that, definitely by 2025, every phone in use in Indonesia will be a smartphone. So time will solve it. You are looking only at a mid-term kind of problem. But I think that part of the issue in Indonesia is also there are plenty of local phone brands. The little China-made, I forget, you've got like several local Indonesia-only phones that come from China. And that these will not sit on the same standard. So you're going to, in the shorter term, I'm afraid you're going to be living with this pain. In the little bit longer term, it will be solved. Yes?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Tommy. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. All right.
I'm here, so please come talk with me. Yeah.